All right. You ready for our next sutra? On Sutra 248, which references the ones before it. So just for a little context. 246 taught us that asana is a steady, comfortable posture. And 247 says, by lessening the natural tendency for restlessness and by meditating on the infinite, posture is mastered. So today, 248 says, thereafter, meaning after posture is mastered, one is undisturbed by the dualities. Which is basically saying the physical practice of yoga is an important part of this path. Right? We might not have a lot of sutras talking about the actual physical practice, but it pretty much says after you've mastered the postures, the dualities become less. So what are the dualities? The dualities are the fluctuations of the mind, which was really, where we started. Sutra 1-2 says the restraint of the fluctuations of the mind stuff is yoga. Months later, and we've been told that once we've mastered posture, we won't be disturbed by the fluctuations of the mind. So it's actually not saying that it will stop the fluctuations of the mind, but that we will become less disturbed by them. So there's still more work to do to totally cease the fluctuations of the mind. Along the path, as we go through the different limbs of yoga, including asana, physical postures, we become more adept at being unbothered. And the way that happens is we practice being bothered. Right? We practice doing pose or triangle pose or whatever the pose is, pigeon pose that might bother us, and we do it over and over again until we're less bothered. And then what actually happens in our physical practice is, maybe the pose hasn't bothered us and we've gotten pretty comfortable in it, and one day we get on our mat and it bothers us again. Right? So this is the path. And so it's, it's speaking to the fact that this practice is actually a practice. Not like you can pose one day after many months and you're like, oh, I've mastered this and now I won't be bothered by it ever again, right? Because maybe you took a long plane trip and your hips are tight and then, oh, yep, this is not the way I like it to be. What do I do? So one of the things that I love about his discussion of this sutra is he distinguishes that what the practice teaches us is the pause between our reaction and our response. So we might feel something in posture that's uncomfortable, and the initial response might be get out of the pose, leave the room, stop practicing yoga. But what we're taught by regular practice is, okay, just stay and see what's here and be okay with what's here. And maybe you adjust your shape or back out a little bit or whatever it is that you need to do. But you learn to interrupt that first response and take mindful action. And so he distinguishes that if we are in a situation that we might want to cry. Something sad happens, loss of some sort, physical pain of some sort. It's not that we want to get to a place where we shut down all our human response, but we want to be able to be in that pause and say, okay, what's the right action right now? And crying sometimes is the right action. So it's a distinguishing rather than a automatic response. I think the interesting thing for me as a modern 24 is there's a lot of mixed messages. So in my own experience, I've been taught that trying to control things, being a control freak, is not a good quality. Right? Like, release that need to control everything. And then here's this: control your actions, right? Like, this is what we're aiming for. So how do I reconcile these two teachings of, like, don't be a control freak, but do a lot of yoga so you can control your reactions? And the place I am in my understanding right now is that it's not that we want to control our reactions to the point where we don't have them, but we want to control what we can, which includes our reactions. So me trying to make other people do things the way I want them to, release that. And then work on how I react to that. Control is a desirable trait when it's self-control. And I feel like if we're trying to control other people or circumstances, that's us playing God. It's kind of a lot of hubris in that. But I can do my best not to freak out. And I feel like that's really the essence of this teaching for me, is to not freak out, to be undisturbed by good and bad, by gain and loss, by fortune or misfortune. So we'll practice not being disturbed. And it's a practice because I woke up this morning and I was pretty disturbed about some things. And I read this and I was like, oh yeah, you gotta practice not being disturbed. All right. So we're gonna start with taking the physical posture for this practice. I invite you, if you want to really practice the undisturbed physical experience of meditation, to be maybe a little more upright and what do I call it? Just intent on being upright and not fidgeting too much today as a practice. When the tickle happens, to be able to just allow it and practice that. Eyes lowered or closed if they're not already. Posture on purpose. And then anchor your mind to the tool of your choice, your breath, the sensations in your body. Just choose an anchor to draw your attention into one pointedness. Allowing. Maybe you notice a physical experience of an urge to change something. Sort of a quickening I feel in my own body. Get curious about that. Can you shift the energy by focusing on the breath? Science teaches us that it takes less than a minute for an emotion to process physically. Can we practice just being with it long enough for it to move through us and dissipate and not get caught up and create more energy around it? versus reacting. Begin to deepen your breaths. Take at least one more, kind of a clearing. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Insights? Comments? Questions? Jen just said she resisted the urge to take off her sweatshirt because it's getting hot in here. It's perfect, right? Well, I hope you guys are able to use all these wonderful tools throughout the holiday season. Whether it's in the store shopping with crazy people out there, or in your home, or in your travels, there's plenty of opportunity for us to practice this time of year. Namaste.